Hi guys. So believe it or not, I've tried to film this video 5 times and it's either out of focus or my face is half cut off, and that is because Mercury is retrograde. And ironically, the whole point of this video is to talk about Mercury retrograde, and it's probably the worst decision I've made all week to try and film this during this period of time, but it's very topical and we are all victims to what this means. I'm kidding, but basically Mercury retrograde is one of the most cliched things in astrology. So there are thousands of memes that you can find that warn you how chaotic this period of time is, and they're not wrong, and in fact they're unfortunately pretty accurate, but I'm going to talk a bit about what's actually happening, and so you can feel a little bit more in control, because there are certain things that we can factor in and be aware of when Mercury is retrograde. So let's start with who Mercury is. Mercury is the planet of communication. So it rules any type of communication. So that could be one-on-one conversation, to sending an email, to internet, to transportation, anything where wires can get crossed, Mercury is going to be involved in. And so the hard part is when a planet's retrograde, it's spinning backwards. And so essentially what that means is Mercury's asleep. It's asleep at the wheel. It's taking a nap. And so I always think of it in the most positive ways. This is just a time to adult. It's time to be really diligent about your schedule, really aware of what you're doing, and very conscious of the mistakes that you could make. I genuinely think of it as Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, as you can see as evidence from my 5 video takes. But it's not all bad, so you're making it sound pretty terrible. So one of the first parts is going to be getting to and from places. So whenever Mercury is retrograde, I mark it in my calendar. And just so you guys know, right now it's retrograde and it will be until April 12th. And so whenever that happens, I leave for work a little bit early. You know, I factor in that my subway is going to be delayed. If I decide to take an Uber, there's probably going to be mad traffic. Or if I had a car, which I do not, it's New York City, it will probably have something mechanically wrong with it. And so it's important to leave early, because you're just allowing some extra time for things to fall apart on the way to work. And maybe they won't, but maybe they will. And if they aren't, then you were early to work, which is always a plus. And then it also rules contracts of any kind. So it's important if you're starting a new job or finalizing a contract with a vendor to make sure you read every single line, read it over and over again, check for little nuanced mistakes, because Mercury doesn't have our back during this period of time. So we kind of need to be super aware of the fact that there's probably something slightly wrong. It's an important time to have a third party check over things, have a friend look over something. If you stared at it a million times and you know you're no longer, you're too numb to the changes that are going on, have someone else take a look at it for you. But it's just important to be reviewing and reviewing and reviewing. Same thing for even something as small as just an email to a coworker. Run it through spell check, maybe have a friend look over it to make sure that it makes sense, because again, it's just a period of time where we are all well-intentioned, but our style of communication or what we're saying might not completely land with everyone else. On that same note, when Mercury is retrograde, it also affects one-on-one relationships. And so if you have to have a really tough conversation with your partner or even someone at work, just know that you might have to repeat yourself a lot. You might have to clarify what you're saying over and over again, because it's this feeling of I'm not really hearing them and they don't seem to really be hearing me whenever Mercury is retrograde. It might be really great to have follow-up conversations with people and just ask them, you know, did you hear what I said? Did you understand what I was trying to get through? And that way you're just facilitating more dialogue. And the most important part of all of this, I think, is to be patient with each other. So you can even say, hey, I mean, if they're open to this, you can say, hey, I know Mercury's retrograde. I don't feel like we had the best conversation yesterday. Can we have it again today? And so, yeah, again, it's Murphy's Law, and I kind of think of it as like crash course in chaos. And so I like to think of it as a good time to figure out what are my triggers for feeling like I can't control anything, and what are ways in which I can adult a bit and figure out what makes me feel secure when my external environment maybe isn't as stable as I would like it to be. The reason why I think the memes are amazing is the most important part of Mercury retrograde is just to have a sense of humor. Like, there's nothing we can really do about it. It will be over very soon. And it's just like, to me, a lesson in humility where I'm like, okay, I'm a human being. I'm late to work. You know, I shot 5 takes of this video. And things are going to be imperfect, and that's really okay. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to DM me on Instagram, or feel free to send me an email. Both of the links are in the description of this video below. And then subscribe if you want to learn more. I'm also going to do a video on Venus retrograde, because that's a whole other host of complex, interesting issues. So anyways, thank you so much, and hopefully this video worked out. Bye.